everybody, it's Webs here, and it's time to devour our competition with Inner Fire Priest under new management of Bless, which returns this style of deck to standard Hearthstone since Inner Fire has rotated out, using cards such as Shadow Word Devour, Stormpike aid stations, and the armor scraps from the Cobalt task managers in order to buff up some of our minions to absurd amount of HP, in which we can finish them off with a cast of Bless, which acts as Inner Fire for this deck. Alright, for the Mulligan guide of this deck, Palm Reading is probably one of the best spells to keep in your opening hand. This will discount all the other spells you have in your opening hand, and in combination with Cobalt Taskmaster or Wand Maker, you can actually gain even more spells to discount before you play the Palm Reading. Minion wise, the best two minions to keep in your opening hand are Taskmaster and Veiled Weaver. These allow you to actually generate some more resources so you can actually use them later on in the game. And for spells besides Palm Reading, you usually want to keep Bless in your opening hand. Even if you have no minions, you'd rather not try to have to draw into this when you actually need it at a key point in the game. Renewal is also a good card to keep in your opening hand, just since it heals you for a little bit, and you can use it to trigger the Veil Weavers if you really feel like it. And finally, the other two spells that you want to keep in your opening hand really depends on what the matchup is and what other cards you have in your opening hand. If you have Palm Reading, Insight is pretty good to keep to get the mana reduction on whatever minion you draw off of this. And if you're against a minion-based matchup, Shadow Word Devour can actually help out a lot. This allows you to scale up your Light Spawn or other minions within the deck pretty quickly, especially if you already have a Bless in your opening hand. And generally, if you don't have any type of minion in your opening hand, just mulligan this away always, because there's no reason to keep a second dead card in your opening hand. I'd rather have the Bless over the Devour if it became a choice between the two to keep in my opening hand. With that being said, let's get into some games. Alright, time for a game against Paladin. Battleground Battlemaster is not something that we want to see in our opening hand, though we also kind of don't want to see a light spawn, but given this matchup, they shouldn't have an easy way to deal with it, so we keep it in our opening hand. Drawing into a Veil Weaver, which isn't terrible. Okay, so they're just going to pass the turn, then we're just going to pass the turn. We're going to place down a Wand Maker, getting us a Holy Smite. Not the best one drop that we could have actually gotten off of that, but not the worst. Drawing into the Stormpike's aid station. Going to kill the Bannerman, which gets us a Bless, which is the main reason why we're actually running the Veil Weavers in this deck, just because sometimes you can actually generate additional Bless by having it on the field. They're going to kill the Veil Weaver. Okay, so we're going to play the Wand Maker, and then we get the Shard of the Naru. Since we had no easy way to actually deal with Cariel on board, they're going to buff up the Cariel. So they're just hand buff Paladin. That's kind of depressing, though they did get a lot of new cards for the deck, so I guess it can't be that depressing. Drawing into the Palm Reading, going to grab the Deliverance, because that means we can steal their Cariel. It's nice because most of our spells in this deck are actually holy, so they can get discounted. Actually, I shouldn't say most. There are a good number of them, but it's probably a more even split than I think it is. We get a Devour. That's actually really good here, because that kills both of their minions and we don't have to pop their Divine Shield. I'm going to play the Aid Station, discounting our two holy spells in our hand. Going to use the Renewal, grabbing the Soul Mirror for later. Cariel, that's kind of a shock. I don't like the fact that that has Consecration on it, but oh well. Let's see what we get here. We get another Thrive in the Shadows. We are grabbing the Renewal, healing ourselves. Get the Call of the Grave, grabbing the Forge Fiend, then healing our Light Spawn, then making Cariel into a 10-10, but it only does 5 damage. They're going to set it down to a 1-1. A Catacomb Guard, interesting. Because we know it's hand buff, we're just going to keep the Soul Mirror until they can actually play something frightening. Again, with turning our big minion into a 1/1. I think if Cariel becomes too much of a problem, people will actually start running some weapon hate in their decks. Gift of the Naru, not a card I want to see here, but if I have to use it, I have to use it. I'm going to place down the aid station, heal our light spawn back up to a 10/10, and then do 5. Now we have a 12/12. Alright, so they're making our light spawn as small as possible. Do they actually have a way to deal with the light spawn? Oh, Sodden actually does. Good thing it doesn't have lifesteal, right? Just gonna finish it off though. Play the Veil Weaver and the Light Elemental. Trying to get as much out of the aid station as humanly possible. Okay, pack meal. 2 pack meals. And a first blade. Gonna target the Veil Weaver. Getting a idol. That's actually not a bad minion to get off of the idol. And we're just gonna go face, then heal. Not because I want to, but because it's generally just the best play. Have them as big as humanly possible. That's a big ass Tyrion. But our greed pays off with the Soul Mirror. And the best thing about the Soul Mirror is the fact that we actually get rid of their stupid weapon from their hero. Man, this is why you don't play Tyrion in the same build as Ariel. Because shit like this could happen to you. Behold, my 20 HP Tyrion. I didn't even have to bless my own minion for this. Maybe they had a Overlord in their hand, which is why they're... Or Samuro, I mean. Alright, time for a game against Priest while playing Priest. This can only turn out well. Going to keep the palm reading. Getting a second palm reading and an aid station. There's our Mr. Smite that will probably do nothing. They're just going to pass the turn. We'll slam down the Veil Weaver and then pass turn. Okay, so they're coining something out. Ah, a palm reading of their own. I guess that's a decent enough card to actually want to coin out. Gonna use our palm reading, get a Psyche split. Next turn we have the Psyche split. Call of the Grave. So I'm assuming they're Death Rattle Priest at this point. Okay, aid station. We're just going to get 2 copies. Getting a renewal. They're going to use their renewal. Wand Maker's interesting to see. I'm going to get the Thrive. Play Wand Maker. Play our aid station. We did get a second Devour, which is actually pretty good in this board state. All we need is a bless, and then we win. For the most part, at least. Void Shard. Light Spawn actually is a pretty good top deck. There's our bless. Gonna play the Light Spawn though. And just going face. There's no reason to do anything additional here. Our Light Spawn will scale up pretty quickly either way. Soul Mirror, that's not something I expected. That does kill our Light Spawn, which sucks, but oh well. Now they're going to use Devour themselves. We're going to heal. Grab the Alterac mount. Then we get more buffs for next turn. Going to kill one of their minions. So we now have a 7/14. A Iron Deep Trog. Now that isn't something I expected, but at the same time, that is a really cool card to see here. And that card is getting really big real quickly. When I say really big, I mean really, really big. And they have a bless of their own. Huh. So, we can actually do something kind of funny here. Get the Devour. Heal up a little bit. Now they get 2 more Trogs. Sure, we'll get more so we can trigger more Trogs. Get lifesteal. We get a Devour. Then we use Bless to finish them off with their huge board and our 30-30. Oh, I guess 30-32. Doesn't really matter. But we win. Alright, time for a game against Hunter. Going to only keep the Wand Maker, drawing into the Veil Weaver and a aid station. Alright, initiate. That initiate is getting really big real quickly. Let's put down the Wand Maker, generating a Flash Heal, which might do us some good against what I'm assuming is Face Hunter. A Demon Companion. And it always is the charged one when you don't want it to be the charged one. Renewal's probably pretty good here. Going to play the aid station just to play it down. Sure, it doesn't do anything for one turn, but next turn we get a pretty tanky Veil Weaver. So if they keep buffing up that initiate, we might be dead. The Cobalt Taskmaster is actually pretty good here. Going to heal myself for a bit. Grabbing the Deliverance. Because if they want to get rid of the Veil Weaver, they have to attack into it with the Initiate. That attacking is not what we want to see. And the fact that he put another buff on that Initiate is really annoying. Grabbing the Renewal. And grabbing the Shard of the Naru, which saves our life. Question is, can we snowball from here? Okay, a palm reading. Devouring Plague, just what we need. Going to attack in the 1-2, just because then we guarantee wipe their board. We're living, but very barely. Any wrong top deck, and we could actually lose the game from this position. Okay, so we need to get rid of some of those minions. We're going to use our first Bless, which gets us a Desperate Prayer, which is actually something that we really needed. We're going to heal. We're going to kill one of their minions. Call it good. Alright, so the Rhino is not something we wanted to see. But the good news is we're still alive. And we can steal the Rhino. And buff it up a bunch, too. Playing the Gift. Playing Fortitude. Killing the two minions. I'm still kind of shocked seeing Face Hunter run Arcane Anomaly. Every time I see it, it just feels bad. I don't really understand why you would run it. A lot of cheap spells, I guess, in Hunter, which might be the reason behind it, but it doesn't seem worth it to me. They're just giving up at this point. Just trying to see if we get a Bless here, but we don't, so. Alright, now that we're through some games, let's discuss why I built the deck the way I did and my final thoughts on the deck. So overall, the deck actually performed relatively alright. I had originally tried to use more elemental support in this deck just because I wanted to revisit Elemental Priest, but Luminous Geode as the new support for that deck actually contradicts a lot of the Bless support you were trying to run in this deck, and the deck became a little bit too crowded, which is why I ended up just going down the Blessed route. While I wouldn't say this deck is the most perfect list in the world, there were definitely some games where I would barely miss lethal given some of the actual buff cards in this deck, and my opponent would be able to sadly deal with our one buffed up minion, which made me change my plan for actually playing the deck a little bit different. I decided to buff up more than one minion at a given time, but that made you rely more on drawing into Blessed or generating more Blessed cards, and my solution that I came up with at one point of testing was to include a Battleground Battlemaster, and then later on Mr. Smite. But when I included Mr. Smite, I don't think he actually ever came up in a single game. I can see his potential in a style of deck like this just because you can either use him as another buff target in the deck and just do the damage instantly, or you can actually use him as a secondary win condition if you get your opponent low enough. But like I said, he never actually came up, and overall I had better luck with Battleground Battlemaster, which is why Smite didn't make the final cut. And if I was going to include another high cost card in the deck, I would probably include a Soul Mirror, just because whenever I generated a Soul Mirror in any game, it felt like that card just won me the match no matter what, as it provided me with a bunch of targets for my spells that might have been sitting in my hand if any of the minions are survived. And this deck actually can perform some really funny and wacky turns as seen in this video. There were a lot of games where I just won out of pure luck of just having at least one minion survive an additional turn or two. And that's the cool thing about this deck. Sometimes you blow your opponent out of the water with just a stereotypical combo, and other times you just have this really weird wacky turn that snowballs into a way where you can actually just win the game from that position even if you're at low health. So overall, if you like a weird wacky deck, this is probably the deck for you. And I'm glad to actually revisit Priest again after not doing it for quite a while. So like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.